I thought I'd do an update. It's been a while. The Christmas holidays and just other work and other things got in the way of much progress. Though, as you can see, I do have floors loosely placed in, which makes life a little easier working on the bus. This is supposedly a LPG BA PCM converted to turbo. Now if you ask the internet, some say that cannot be done and some say it can be done. Well, anyway, yeah, there's people are trying to sell an original BA turbo 4-speed PCM for over $2,000. I reckon they're dreaming. Now, if this is a solution, no one wants these. These are like $50. So, fingers crossed, huh? So, the PCM guy, I found a guy I found mixed messages online. Some saying an LPG BA PCM can be flashed to a turbo tune and can do boost control, but it also read that it can't do boost control. So I actually read that midway through sending my PCM out. So this guy in Tassie did it. It took a month, and he's pretty bad at communication, but it arrived eventually, and I first plugged it in and it fired up. That's making all the right noises. It's running rough, but it was running really rough, and I kept on messing around with it. It got worse and worse and worse, and then it just wouldn't run. So I put back on the NA and it wouldn't run again. So I thought, I smelled lots of fuel, so I removed the plugs and found they were all caked up. And then I thought, something's not right. I've done something wrong. So I just chatted to the guy who did my PCM, and he reminded me that I hadn't changed the map sensor to a turbo one. So this is what I needed. It's an FG map sensor. Now I got confused with this and the one on the intake. Right, so that's the 3D printed part. I'm going to put some black silicone on the back of it so it seals. Hopefully that can hold 7 psi at least. All going through. Let's see, huh? Intake. It's down there, and as you can see, I have to take off my intake pipe. Very hard to get to without taking all the rail off and everything. So it's a bit of a fun job, but it should fix the tuning. Swapped it out, fired up beautifully with the new spark plugs. Really nice, and then took it for a drive. This is better. Oh yeah, I've got my jump. We'll better take it off. It's probably not good for it. Right, let's try again. Ah, drive's working. So it was a wiring issue, I think. Just putting up a new fence. Now it's really noisy because of this road. It's all corrugated too, so take it slowly because it'll shake out all the bolts, hopefully. It's getting up to operating temperature. Oh, I'm all sweaty. noise, I can't tell what the engine's doing. See rear flat door banging. That drive was a little bit more eventful than hoped. A few electrical problems. I think it was just the battery slopping around a bit and the ground came loose. But otherwise it drove well. And yeah, I'm only pushing it to about 2,000 RPM. So it'll be very interesting when it hits around 3, I reckon. Still considering getting a dyno tune done in Dalesford. But yeah, it's running heaps better than it was on NA, and this PCM seems to be doing the trick. With these Chinese turbos, you have to port the internal wastegates. I hadn't actually checked it before I pulled it off, and then I found that actually the hole wasn't too bad. A lot of them could be really small. So while it was off, I decided to do a little bit of milling around the edge of the hole on the inside, just so it get a bit of extra flow. But no, I've seen videos and others, and they were tiny holes, but this one was actually pretty decent, so it may not have been a problem. So the point is that it can cause turbo boost creep if you don't do this. There was heaps of messing around with the vacuum lines. I had to put in a new vacuum T multi-junction. Yeah, this is a tricky job. I need an extra vacuum line, so I'm replacing one of those press fit tubes with that baby. It's an M8 BSB. Just quite a tricky tap to do while it's still in the car. So pretty happy with that. That could have been one of those jobs that could have gone on for hours, but it didn't. The tapping went quite smoothly. The new pronged thing fitted nicely. So that is the solenoid for the brake booster. That black wire goes to the brake pedal and tells it to go on and let the vacuum go to the boost. That one there is now going to go to the turbo dump valve solenoid, and that one goes to my fuel regulator, which needs to be mounted. But yeah, I think that's all the vacuumers I need. Excellent. As you can see, I've got to now wire the boost sensor and the wastegate solenoid. So that all seems to have got sorted. Of course, before I could really drive it anyway, I had to fix the brakes. The brakes were really spongy and terrible and were leaking everywhere. If I left it for a few weeks, it would just drain out. So I had the brake master cylinder sent out for reconditioning properly. And I'm glad I did it, but there's a story to that as well. I was going to do a video about how happy I was with getting my cylinder professionally rebuilt. except I think they've done a great job. It's been re-sleeved and resealed. Now they only said they charged me $140. Of course, when I get there, they said, "Oh, mate, oh yeah, it cost 210 because your piston was all corroded," and they handed me this. And I just grabbed it and left, and I paid, and thought, nothing of it. I went, "What? That's not my piston. In fact, my piston is the one there that I threaded, and it's perfectly fine." So I thought, well, maybe they got parts confused or something, but so they haven't even replaced the piston. They have re-sleeved it and resealed it. So they did a swindle on me. The last time I drove it on the last video, I had some clunking, and it was the center bearing was not sitting in its ring. The rubber support was slightly out one side, and it was vibrating and banging. And I fixed that. I also noticed that the original mounts of the center bearing when it was a Toyota was actually off center slightly, so I've centered it right down the middle, and it's much better. What else? So I've still really got to mount the seating next and get my good new seat belts in, put some retractables in, make sure it's all really safe and tight at the front before I even go over 60. Yeah, I don't really want to push it until it's safe. At the moment, it's not unsafe because the brake's working well now, but the not having a proper seat anchored is a bit stressful, so I don't want to do that until that's done next. But I'm really happy with the way it's running, and it doesn't seem to be leaking any fluids or oils or anything. Oh, speaking of fluids, I added an overflow bottle for the radiator because it was getting warm and pushing water coolant out. So I've been told, given lots of different directions on the handbrake, I haven't actually got a lot of thought of it just recently, but I've engineered one based on at the rear of the transmission, which someone kindly showed me their setup on their coaster, which I used a Subaru disc and caliper. I think this is hydraulic. I know the engineer said it had to be mechanical, not hydraulic. It certainly has to be separate from your regular brake system. I spoke to a guy in Geelong, it's an engineering firm there. They said they've done 20 of them, probably back in the 90s, and they do use a brake on the diff, and it says I had to drop my diff in, and he said only $600 to set up the bracket for the calipers. Now he wanted to use the original drum system. Mine's in kind of bad shape, and I really wanted a really solid handbrake, and I think that the transmission one's going to be better, just because it's bigger. The wheel wood and that rotor are pretty solid, so I'm going to continue down the path of the transmission one. Yeah, haven't got that engineered, so haven't had spoke to an engineer about it, but the guy with the Subaru one said it was engineered, so yep, I'm going to go down that path and see what happens. Anyway, as you can see, it's got heaps of power. It's going to be really fun when I can actually feel confident pushing it past 2,500 RPM. I mean, I'm sure boost doesn't really get started until 3, so it certainly feels a lot faster than when it was on NA. Yeah, so it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to really power up hills, but I'm not going to do anything like that until I get these seats and seat belts fully sorted, and yeah, and then so hopefully have some more on road action next time. Sorry, it's a bit rambling this time. Yeah, lots of bits and pieces, but and a lot more to go, I'm sure. All right, cheers.